All right. Well, now that the recording is officially in progress, I'll go ahead and get started as well. If you did just join us, I'll leave up this QR code for a second, but there's also going to be a link put into the chat once again here in a second that will lead you to a Google document where you can share contact information with us and also ideas, websites, resources, and notes. So I invite you to do that. There will also be a link to this presentation in that Google document. And then if there's anything in particular we bring up during the session today, we'll add it to that Google document, which you will continue to have access to. And we invite you to do that. Thank you all for coming today. We really appreciate you being here. This is a fantastic opportunity to talk about the intersections of engineering and human rights. And that's a little bit of what we are seeking for today, is actually seeking for shared expertise where we can share our knowledge, our thoughts and ideas together. And we really want to value the ability to interact with all of you. Hopefully, we're hoping for fruitful discussion, actually, as we seek out how best to develop what we're trying to develop. So I'm gonna, okay, there, once again, there's the QR code. And again, the link will be in the chat. Tony, if you can put it one more time in the chat, that'd be great. So there's 5 of us that's going to be talking today, and we are all at the University of Dayton, associated with several different parts of the University of Dayton. But we have been working over the past 2 years and more intentionally in the past year, specifically in thinking through how do we develop initiatives around engineering and human rights. And the key initiative we've been working on more recently is developing an academic minor for engineering students in engineering and human rights. And so that is our specific area that we want to talk about today as we think through what are concerns, what should we prioritize as we develop engineering and human rights academic minor, partnerships, research, collaborations. And so we really hope that you'll enter into that conversation with us. A little overview of what we're going to do. It's going to be quick mini presentation so you get a context of where we're coming from, what we are doing, who we are. And then we're actually going to do 2 sets of breakout groups. And these breakout groups are going to be more of we have some guiding questions to get us started, but then it will really get us into discussion where you can share what you've been involved in and what you might recommend, or what concerns you should put forward to us, or what we should prioritize. So hopefully you'll find that engaging. So I'm going to start with, I'm Kelly Bohr, and I am the Executive Director of the ETHOS Center in the School of Engineering, as well as the Director of Community Relations for the School of Engineering. So my background, actually, my degrees are in environmental biology. So I have an applied science view on the world, but I also have been in community engagement field in higher education for over 10 years, as well as doing social justice education. So that's a little bit about me. This is the mission of our university, and I want to start with giving you context of our university, because I think as you might also be thinking about that engineering and human rights and how that might fit with your organization or your university, I think context is really important. So that's where we want to begin. So you'll see in the context, key to our context is that we are a Catholic and Marianist university. We are a private university in the Midwest in Ohio, Dayton, Ohio. So I'm going to switch to the next slide, which will give you a little bit more information about the context of our university. And what I chose here is what I think are different contexts to think about, as both for us in thinking about assets that we have at the University of Dayton for engineering and human rights, but also if you were similarly thinking about, gosh, how do I do this at my institution? It gives you a sense of some of the things that you can look for in thinking through your assets at your institution. So again, we are a private Catholic and Marianist institution. We are in an urban environment in the city of Dayton. And the majority of our students do identify as white and primarily middle class to upper class. We have values, we really put forward values of experiential learning, community engagement, diversity and social justice, and the whole person, which comes out of the context of our mission, our values, and our identity. Our human rights program started in 1998. And our Human Rights Center was established in 2013, and they have been absolutely key to a part of this collaboration that we're developing. In engineering, the ETHOS Center has been started as an immersion program in 2001, so 20 years ago. And in 2016, it was established as a center where we're doing more than just student immersion work. We're getting into research, more academic curriculums such as the engineering and human rights minor. And then lastly, what I think is important in thinking through how do you develop this, and both what might be limitations as well as what might be fruitful assets, are the university commitments. So in this case, our university is committed to several different national or international commitments that presidents of universities can sign on to or develop their own, such as anti-racism, the Community-Based Global Learning Collaborative, UN Global Compact, Fair Trade University, as well as many other things. So I find all of this important in the way that we have been able to get institutional buy-in. How would you get institutional buy-in when you're thinking about that and you're thinking through the concerns or your priorities? As I already mentioned, we look at what assets we could leverage. So I already named a few of the assets that we can leverage. What are the mission, values, guiding principles, and commitments of your institution? So maybe it's more civically guided, more religiously guided. Think about who is the education for, or to what, or for what purpose, and with whom. Who or what aligns with your mission and values? We were really lucky to have both an ETHOS Center, which is very focused on community engagement for socio-technical engineering for just and sustainable technologies, as well as the Human Rights Center and Human Rights Program at UD to really bring this nexus together. And then last but not least, who can be a part of collaborative leadership? No one of the five of us could have done this on our own. It really has taken bringing together the School of Engineering and faculty, both in engineering and the college, as well as the Human Rights Center. This has helped us to build social capital, to have shared vision, and have structures where we can learn together like a faculty learning community, which will be mentioned in a minute. Also, we help each other persist. So I think that's really important too. This isn't any one person's job. This is an initiative that we think is important and fits well at UD. So we have to nudge each other to keep persisting. All right, now I am going to hand it off to an engineering faculty member that we've been working with so he can share his perspective on the development of our partnership.
So hello, my name is Tim Reisman. I am an assistant professor within mechanical and aerospace engineering. I have been at the University of Dayton for 6 years. To give you a background on myself, all of my degrees through PhD are through mechanical and aerospace engineering. And I have also done work for rehabilitation hospitals as largely biomedical engineering aspects, working with people with spinal cord injury, amputation, and stroke. Coming to the University of Dayton, what we've seen prior to trying to create this minor is that many of the challenges that our engineers face today is that even if they have a passion for something in human rights, that largely their experiences have been tied to only what their experience has been at the university. So they've been able to do an immersion while they're an undergraduate student, or they've been able to do study abroad and things like that, where they've been able to do what you would consider engineers without borders or things like that. But what we really want to do is we want to try to make a deeper connection to that human rights so that they can find a career that unites these two. So what we're trying to do within our engineering context of how we teach classes within the minor is to have those engineering classes be both required classes and elective courses as they move on, so that everyone gets somewhat of a holistic approach to all of these solutions that would take into mind things of a shared planet, that we try to have them incorporate some of our values and things as a university through their reflections, introspection, even if they're not doing those immersions, so that they get a vision of what a career would like that includes considerations for human rights within their design solutions. And to try to really elevate what we ask our students to do and inspire them to think more broadly on the grander challenges that engineering faces, we look to the National Academies of Engineering to both foster things that we can do within the classroom, along with things that we could do within research on ideas of sustainability, health, security, and joy of living, which overarches all the things that we're trying to do within the minor, along with what we're trying to teach our students to think as engineers. And so with that said, I'm going to pass it off now to talk a little bit more about that sustainability effort that has been going on even more time than this proposed minor.
Hello, everyone. My name is Bob Brecka, and I'm a faculty member in the Hanley Sustainability Institute, a professor of sustainability, and have been at the university for about 28 years. I also bridge a little bit the College of Arts and Sciences and the School of Engineering, since I teach in the Renewable and Clean Energy graduate program as well. So what I bring to the conversation a little bit is the experience that we had at the university doing a lot of what both Kelly and Tim have already talked about, looking at ways to broaden the experiences of our students and to take advantage of, if you will, the mission of the university and support we can find for initiatives like this new human rights and engineering minor and our sustainability minor and major that started out about 2006 with really a call from deans of the School of Engineering and the College of Arts and Sciences to create a plan for sustainability. What do we need to do? And I was able to help lead that effort at the time. What we fairly quickly came up with was that we were going to create a broad initiative with 4 themes: curriculum, campus, research, and community, all around sustainability, and realizing from the very beginning that these would not be independent silos, but that they would be very much linked together. So we first decided to develop a minor, the Sustainability, Energy, and the Environment minor, or C, which started in 2010 officially. We actually had students graduate pretty much before this because they, as I'll talk about in a second, we used some courses that were already existing, and we had students who basically did the minor before it was officially available because they were enthusiastic about it. We kept hearing from students about how much they were looking forward to getting this, being able to take this minor. So one of the things we did, and here's some of the things that are at least we found to work at UD, but may or may not work out everywhere. When we created the minor, we actually absorbed orphaned experimental courses. We also took some courses that were existing in other programs, but we had a really good advantage of taking some courses that were new, team taught, around themes of cities and sustainability or other areas, and we incorporated them into the minor. These were courses that otherwise we had received funding to develop them, but they were a little bit too far out there, or they were team taught, which is always a challenge, and so nobody was willing to pick them up in general, but we made it part of the sustainability minor. Example was a course on cities and energy, for example, that was designed to be taught by an English professor, a history professor, and then an engineering or physics, in my case, professor. And we were all in the class at the same time. Or another course that was taught by a philosopher and a scientist, team taught, with doing experiential learning and campus sustainability projects. So these are courses that are hard to categorize, but we were able to put them into the minor and gave us a unique feeling for that in that minor, because they were already interdisciplinary courses that kind of crashed down the boundaries we normally had between subjects. The other thing we did is we took advantage of the fact that there were coming changes in the general education curriculum at UD, and we basically got out in front of that and said, okay, everything we design is going to fit in, and is in fact going to become a model for how other courses could fit into the new, more interdisciplinary gen ed system. We also did this team teaching, which is, and anybody who's done that knows it can be challenging, it can be exhilarating, it can be frustrating, and maybe above all, it can be something that administrators higher up don't like to see that much, because it it's 2 faculty members teaching 1 course. But we've been able to continue that for now a decade, where we have a somewhat informal buy-in from departments, sometimes a little bit more formal, but pretty often it's just a matter of department chairs and faculty saying, this is something that's important for the mission of the university. It's important. It's something I want to do. We want to support. And so we've had pretty good luck getting faculty, 2 faculty in the classroom at once. The 3 faculty version I mentioned earlier only happened a couple times, but I taught that one at least 3 times. And I have personally taught courses with political scientists, with anthropologists, with English professors, with biology professors, photographers, history professor. So I've been able to experience a lot of these different team taught interdisciplinary courses. One of the things that happened was, along the way, there was an ability, because the sustainability program fit with the mission of the university, to encourage departments to actually hire with the eye towards having faculty who could contribute to that. That means there has to be a kind of green light from higher up in the administration to do that. And as time went on, we ended up with it turned into one of the largest minors on campus, and we worked towards our original goal, but it took a while to do this, to create a sustainability BA and BS majors with different tracks. The tracks for the BA are food systems and urban sustainability, and for the BS, it's watersheds and energy systems. And these are now going to be graduating really the first class of students this coming spring. And again, the one thing I have to say is that there's been very intentional engagement for the whole process across all units. It's nominally housed in the College of Arts and Sciences, but it's the School of Engineering, it's a lot of other, and the School of Education, Health Sciences, a little bit business school, and others who are contributing. So with that experience set in the context, I'll turn it over to my colleague Tony Talbot to talk about the SDGs.
Great, thanks, Bob. So what I want to do in this part for just my couple of minutes is to talk about how the value I see in the use of the 2030 agenda, or the United Nations SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, as a framework that could help guide the development of some of these courses, or this idea of uniting engineering or the sciences and human rights. Hopefully everyone's at least somewhat familiar with the SDGs and the 2030 agenda. They went into effect in 2015. They were a globally developed universal agenda with a lot of real participatory input broadly from governments, experts, community members, civil society organizations, academics, et cetera, all over the world, to develop these 17 sustainable development goals, which I'll show you on the next slide here in a moment. These goals have a sort of an overarching goal of reducing and eliminating poverty, and then all the associated social issues connected to poverty and deprivation and marginalization. But they also very explicitly focus on environmental protection and environmental issues, and inclusive economic growth as well. So they bring together all 3 of the pillars of sustainable development: the environmental, the social, and the economic. There are 17 goals. Each of these goals has multiple targets, basically, that have to be met in order to achieve that goal. There's 17 goals, 169 targets, and each of the targets has 1 or more indicators that are the metrics that are being used to measure and assess the progress toward achieving the goal. And there's 230 plus indicators for these 17 goals altogether. So what this does is give you a real clear set of criteria, set of metrics, set of real world objectives connected to real world issues and real world problems that you can use in a class, in an engineering class especially. You could take systems thinking ideas, you could take technical skills that you're developing, just your engineering mindset, apply it to a real world problem, see the clear connection between that issue and the connections to social justice and human rights, and really have an actual impact on the state of the world and the state of human society. I think the agenda is also very valuable because you'll be collaborating with the rest of the world, participating in a global endeavor. And this Sustainable Development Agenda runs parallel to and really strongly complements the International Human Rights Agenda. They're basically, in a lot of ways, merging into the same agenda. It runs from 2015 until 2030. We're in what's called the Decade of Action right now, where we're really supposed to be trying to implement programming and assessing our progress to try to meet the goals by 2030. You could join in with this. Students will be able to connect the work they're doing to work that's being done all over the globe, as well as nationally or locally, in the private sector, as well as in the public sector and civil society, because everyone's using the same SDG framework. So I think it is a very powerful tool to use. That can help, like I said, develop topics and develop projects for students. Just to leave you with looking at the SDGs, if you could go to the next slide, please, Kelly. And then in our breakout, I can chat more about this agenda and answer any other questions that you might have. But the very last thing before I turn it over to Shelley is I will put in the chat in a second a link to a website from the Danish Institute of Human Rights that directly links the SDG agenda to goals, targets, indicators to specific articles of international human rights documents and treaties and conventions. It's a very powerful tool to use. It's in our document that you can access from the QR code, but I'll put it in the chat as well. And now I'll turn it over to our Executive Director of the Human Rights Center, Shelley Inglis.
Thank you, Tony. I really appreciate it. And so pleased to be here with Kelly and with Bob and Tim and Tony, who have been part of this collaboration, as Kelly said, which is really more of a labor of love for us at UD. And I think you're hearing a lot about what we are leveraging in terms of our mission and our existing programs and efforts around sustainability, human rights, and engineering. I want to express my appreciation to AAAS for giving us this platform to discuss with you, and to you all for joining us and listening to us. And hopefully when we get into breakout rooms, you'll have an opportunity to collaborate and speak with us. And we're looking for your expertise and insights as well. So we have used this human rights education approach, which is, of course, the United Nations framework for human rights education, which has 3 pillars. And we've done this in the context of developing this minor. I just want to say we started as University of Dayton, something that Kelly, I think, didn't put as much emphasis on, but I'll mention it here. We started with a minor and with teaching because that's really a strength of the university. We are a teaching focused university and spend a lot of time in the formation and the vocational pathways of our students. We do obviously conduct research as well, and I'll get to that, but we did start with the minor as a way of getting faculty and students together, what we hope will develop into a research agenda for us. So going back to human rights education, the approach of the UN is human rights education includes about human rights, so knowledge of the institution's norms, standards, and the substantive content of human rights learning through human rights, so the approach you take to actually teaching and to experiencing human rights, to democratic ways of thinking about learning and sharing expertise, to a human rights-based approach to actual education itself. Is human rights through human rights, and then for human rights. So how we practically train and enable our students to apply human rights in the real world, to use an advocacy and practice approach. So it's not just knowledge, it's also the approach of learning and teaching and the way that it can be applied in practice. And that very much is reflected, those three pillars in our minor. As Tony has highlighted and Kelly has also mentioned, we're a university committed to the concept of developing global citizenship in our students. A whole of student and whole of person approach includes embracing a global world and understanding our responsibilities in that global world. And we have a number of existing frameworks and commitments, as Kelly mentioned, at the university. And how we did this is to develop a faculty learning community. Those of us here with you have been a part of that community, and in that process, and Kelly's done a great job of helping us and shepherding us along. But that faculty learning community took the opportunity to explore with other universities what they're doing in related spaces. As you know, humanitarian engineering is a large space in education for engineers, but there's also peace engineering, there's social justice engineering, there's activism engineering. So there are a number of universities and academics, scholars, and practitioners thinking about this space and coming at it from related, though slightly different paradigms and lenses. The minor itself, just to mention that it is a 15 credit minor for those of you who are from academic institutions and this kind of thing matters. It's primarily engineering classes that have human rights dimensions to them. So that's 6 of that 15 credits. There are human rights, knowledge, 3 credits, and actually part of that 6 of the engineering as well is human rights related, as I said. And then we have our general education requirements, which are 3. These are embedded in the minor, and they are a selection of courses, for example, philosophy and human rights that engineers would be taking, and that they were required to take certain amount of general education credits, and they would use those to apply to this minor. And then 3 credits in experiential learning, which is the terminology we use at UD for this practice related learning. And a great example of that from the Human Rights Center is actually going to be presented in the closing plenary this afternoon, and that's our Moral Courage project. And you'll be able to then really get a sense of what we're talking about in all these slides and how we do education in human rights that is applicable. And Poison and Power is about the right to water, to clean water, applicable to engineering spaces. And then just to say, we've obviously developed learning objectives that reflect the university's overall common academic program. So our overall objectives in our whole of student learning approach, and that's for students to be able to critically evaluate the issues of our times, have that analytical and critical and self-reflective approach that Tim was mentioning, practical wisdom, so knowledge that is applied in the real world and how it works in the real world, vocation, having a calling and also a career pathway, which Tim also discussed, and diversity, equity, inclusion as an anti-racist university is a deep commitment of the university, and social justice. And this minor really contributes as a practical manifestation of these overall efforts and learning objectives of the university. I want to talk a little bit before we go into our groups about the challenges we see in doing this. In looking ahead, creating a minor is one dimension, but we do have a larger agenda. And of course, we are at a cutting edge. There is the University of Connecticut that has a similar type effort, although they use their human rights standard minor for engineers, but offer specific courses. think we are the first university to explore a specific School of Engineering and Human Rights minor, although it is a collaborative effort, as I mentioned. So those challenges are, and I had referenced this initially, developing a research agenda that drives and reinforces our curricular and extracurricular learning. There are areas of expertise of our engineering and human rights capacities at UD, which I think will end up driving this research agenda. One of them is sustainability, which you clearly heard about. The other in Tim's world, biomedical and assistive technologies, for example. So we do have a number of areas where the application of specific engineering disciplines to human rights, I think, will be and drive a research agenda that will be reinforced through learning and through course development and curricula. We are developing more partnerships. ETHOS has a range of partnerships, as Kelly mentioned, for immersion programs with more, traditional humanitarian or NGOs at the community level. The Human Rights Center has a number of partnerships with human rights organizations and local development organizations, but we're looking to expand our partnerships to those organizations that really work at the intersection of engineering, new technologies, science, and human rights to provide our students with experiential learning opportunities and to help us to develop a research agenda that's applicable to the work of organizations and institutions and actors in the human rights and engineering space. There, we're looking at that as creating future pathways for students and alumni networks of students who are entering into human rights and engineering and who are gaining that experience, who are going out into the world or into graduate education, to be able to create a mentorship and network and support for students entering this new space, this new minor. And related to that is engaging with industries, with those in the private sector who hire the majority of our engineers, with government and other NGO organizations, or I guess in a broad sense, civic society, civil society organizations that can use engineers who have a human rights background, who want engineering, young students, future generation, who can, critically evaluate what they're doing, the impact of what they're doing on individual and community rights, can engage communities in collaborative design in a manner that reinforces rather than undermines human rights, that understand discrimination and historic inequities and how they work, and are able to develop technical solutions that respond to and reinforce accountability and other core human rights principles like transparency, accountability, and the rule of law. So it's not so clear to us right now what those vocational pathways will exactly look like. We can see in some industries and in some organizations, spaces where engineers could become more and more wanted or desired with this kind of education in their back pockets. And clearly there is also graduate education for engineers and research areas that are in this space. So these are some of the challenges and things that we're thinking about, and we want to harness your knowledge, your expertise in groups, and sort of separate into three groups around these questions that we have as we move this forward. So breakout groups are, as you see on the slide, first one on vocation. What do human rights organizations need from engineers? Where would engineers with human rights knowledge and application be useful in traditional industries and private sector? From the education and formation perspective, which will be Tony and Bob. The first group will be myself and Tim. What would students like to see in such a program? If we have students in the room, I hope we do. What should students be taught? What kind of learning outcomes should we be thinking about further? And then finally, experiential learning, that intersection of 1 and 2, which is where we help students to apply in real world sense their knowledge during their education, and have that be reinforced through their curricular and research. Again, our Moral Courage project, which is happening in the plenary, is a great example of our experiential learning approach. So I understand Kelly's going to put us all in small rooms, but I again thank you all for your time and for sharing, hopefully, your expertise, insights, and interests in this space with us.
Thank you so much, Shelley. Yes, so I am going to open up the rooms, and you have the option of choosing which one you would like to go to. We're actually going to do 2 rounds, so we'll take about 15 to 20 minutes where you can hang out in one. You don't have to hang out in that one the entire time. If you decide in 5 minutes in you want to go somewhere else, that is totally okay as well. There will be someone back in the main room that can put you into another room. But if you would all choose one for now so that we can start that discussion and share insights and ideas. I'm always so amused by, I've been doing Zoom for over a year, and I always find it so much fun when everybody comes back. Everybody's forced back from their breakout room, and all of a sudden, poof, everybody appears. It's pretty
very powerful.
Yeah. Okay. I know, it does kind of feel like that, right? So maybe that's what it is. It's a power trip after doing this like 100,000 times in the past year. So great, thanks. Welcome back, everyone. So Shelley, I think you were going to help us do some maybe integration, bring it back together.
Sure. I wonder if anybody's willing to sort of chime in on what they got out of their breakout groups, and I'd love to hear from you all. Did anybody have some key takeaways they would like to share quickly before we?
Well, this is Mindy. I've just been yanked from the group with Shelley and Tim. It's clear that we're talking about the interplay of business and engineering and political doings. So it's political science, engineering, economics, the human rights world, philanthropy, how they intersect, how they complement, how they contradict. So it's a very large canvas.
Yes, absolutely. And what we were stressing too is we're talking about an undergraduate education. So this is an initial introduction for students at a younger point in their formation to be able to grapple with really complex, the complexities of both engineering and the complexities of the application of human rights in that space. So we don't expect this minor to be able to solve all these intersections. We're trying to give the sort of skills, knowledge, tools, and some practice to young people at a critical point in their formation to be able to enter into these spaces, to grapple with these challenges in the future. Other takeaways?
One thing that came up in our group, I think repeatedly, was the giving the engineering students the ability to sort of contextualize what they're doing and the decisions that they might have to be making, realizing that they're going to have a broader social or economic, political impact than just solving an engineering problem was really important. I don't know if anybody would want to build, anyone from those groups would want to build on that.
I'll just give the real quick story of one of the first sustainability students, because I think our sustainability students, because I think it applies to this as well. She's an engineering student who came to me at the end of her time, and she said, my engineering classes taught me how to solve a lot of problems, but my sustainability classes taught me how to avoid the problems in the first place. And I think, you can look at that with the human rights as well, is that it would be the same sort of attitude, that you're training the students to look ahead for the potentially bad outcomes or the potentially negative outcomes of the work they're doing.
Great. Yeah, I mean, that sort of critical reflection piece is really important. And it's one of the things that we integrate both in terms of the curricular, but also in the experiential learning dimension, in terms of formation as an individual, right? A lot of that ability to sort of question and analyze and be able to bring that to the work is part of also understanding who you are, your positionality, your contextual frame. So I was wondering, Kelly, did you have some insights from the experiential learning group?
Yeah, I think, we talked a lot about the challenges of finding that perfect nexus of engineering and human rights. And is it with human rights organizations? Is it with engineering organizations? So I think it ties into vocation and education as well. But it was really great hearing Chris's perspective and what she has done with students in her courses and in her research lab, where she's actually had non-physics students in her research lab, and her physics students actually have applied their physics work to archaeology. And then she talked a lot about science advocacy too. So like, I think just trying to get really creative and ideate, and then to all of us to lean on Chris in the next year when she's done with her sabbatical, because she's going to be working on helping, hopefully, I think it will greatly help faculty even think about how do you frame research questions in this field at the crossroads of STEM and human rights.
Great, Chris, so would you like to say something?
I was going to say, since I was in a group of one with Kelly, basically, it was just the two of us, so I think she covered it quite well. Thank you.
Well, we're excited to follow up with you and engage with you going forward. Others, any other takeaways from Savannah, Victoria, or sort of, I know, students or younger researchers? Anyone else? Thoughts?
We talked a little bit about the importance of learning how to advocate, how to communicate science, and you could like turn on all these engineers to be aware of these social and environmental problems, but if you don't equip them with the skills to do something about it, it'd be a real missed opportunity. I thought that was pretty insightful.
Yeah, and I think as Tony knows, he set that one up nicely for us because that's our sort of niche at the Human Rights Center at UD.
Oh, is it?
Advocacy. Yeah, it is, Tony. Advocacy. And I think, again, this goes to the complexity, right? So in some contexts, these students will enter into organizations that clearly have an advocacy agenda. And in other contexts, they will enter into industry organizations where the advocacy agenda is harder to sort of negotiate, but they will have the skills to be able to do it and hopefully be able to modify it depending on the context in which they are found. I mean, I think it's important that we think about in these spaces that the students in these vocational pathways have supportive mentors or others who allow them to actually, or enable them to actually practice a bit what they've learned. And that's why the experiential learning and developing relationships and partnerships with organizations and industries is really very important. Tim's heading out, so maybe I know we have to finish up. I want to thank everybody so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. Thanks to Teresa, of course, our great leader, the coalition, for allowing us this space. She's been a real supporter of this effort, which is, as I said before, a real labor of love for all of us. And we really appreciate AAAS's partnership and their sort of supportive environment for the work we're doing. So we hope to stay in touch with you all and hopefully develop relationships and partnerships that can help us not only move this forward for UD students, but also hopefully help organizations out there and others thinking in this nexus space about formation, education, and vocation in human rights and engineering. So thank you all again. And thanks to my co-facilitators, Kelly in particular, Tony, Bob, and Tim.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah,
you
thanks
all.
so much.
Thanks,
We'll
everyone.
be in touch. We'll send out an email to be in touch.
Okay, all right.